friends, welcome back to the Spirit Woke podcast. And we are so happy and thrilled that you're joining us here. Um, this is the first episode we are recording since coronavirus has entered into our consciousness. And so, my hope coming into this podcast today is that what you learn, what you hear, what we discuss resonates with your soul. It makes a difference. It helps you in some way as we're living through these times. And so I couldn't think of a better person to invite to the show to talk to us today about a variety of different types of healing modalities and things that we haven't really talked about on the podcast before. So we're welcoming once again for her fifth time back on our Spirit Woke podcast, Ellen Red. And today she's going to talk to us about remote surgery, astral surgery, remote healing, and all kinds of things related to it. So, Ellen, thank you so much for taking time today to join the Spirit Woke podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me back. I appreciate it. Hope
Well,
you're
it is.
doing well.
Yeah, I hope you're doing well too. I'm sure you are as always, and I'm doing well, and I'm blessed, and I'm really excited about today's show. Ellen, I know we've talked four times prior to this, and each time I've read a bio that introduces who you are. But let's do something a little bit different today. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about who you are in your words?
Oh gosh, where do I begin? That's a loaded question. Well, yeah, I guess we're all multi-dimensional beings, so I could go on about who am I, and who are you, really. But my background is, you know, I spent a lot of years in public relations, broadcasting, radio, television, etc. And then eventually I got into real estate, and so I've done real estate for almost 2 decades in Las Vegas. And then I had my spiritual awakening, and that's really kind of led me on a path of healing myself and assisting humanity in the global ascension. So now I work as an ascension guide and a twin flame guide.
Excellent. And if you want to learn more about Ellen and hear, in addition to this podcast, some of Ellen's genius, you can go to spiritwoke.com and just search in the search bar for Ellen Red, ELLENREDD, and you'll find all of her episodes there. There's a vast library of Ellen for you to listen into, and I highly recommend those episodes. They're our most popular episodes of all the podcasts that we've recorded so far. So Ellen, talk to us. Tell us what is going on in the spiritual world as it relates to, when we initially talked about this topic of remote surgery and astral surgery and remote healing. A lot of these I hadn't really heard of these things before. So in that vein, what do those things mean? What are they?
Well, where do I begin? Remote surgery would be basically where, souls that have crossed over onto the other side into the non physical dimensions are still assisting humanity. So humans might not see them with their physical eyes, but they still exist. They're still in our plane with us, and many of them are serving humanity and assisting humanity in healing, and not just in healing, but in all areas of our lives. Healing just being one of them. So, remote surgery would be where, rather than going into a hospital and having, doctors cut your skin open and perform surgery on you that way in the physical world, non physical beings can perform the same type of surgery on an etheric level, um, and heal you if they deem that they're willing to do that and that you're a worthy candidate for such. There are people that are in the physical world also that have been known to perform similar types of surgeries without having to cut a person open. And even though they're physical beings doing this, John of God would be one of them, who's a well-known surgeon in Brazil, and he does everything non-physically, basically performs surgery and heals thousands and thousands of people. So that's kind of the the um, the essence of this topic. And basically, it's on the lines of, you know, knowing and remembering and understanding that our spirits, our souls, and our thoughts alone have more power. I mean, there are creates reality, right? Did I lose you?
Hey, Ellen. I think your headset went back off.
Uh-oh. Sorry about that. Just
No,
now did it do it?
yeah, no worries. Our producer will edit this part.
Okay. Are you able to hear me then still?
Yeah, I can hear you. The audio is a little bit different, but I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I don't know how to fix it because it just seems to want to come in and out.
Okay.
Um, where was I at?
Um, so you were saying you were talking a little bit about. Hey, let's start back with John of God. So Nick, if you're listening to this, we can edit this back to John of God. So go ahead, Ellen.
Okay, so yeah, John of God is a you know, pretty much a world-renowned healer, and people from all around the globe flock to his location and receive, you know, healing, and they're swearing by the droves of all different types of medical procedures that have been being done non-physically. They'll go in and have, you know, gallbladder removed or whatever, and it's all happening without surgical equipment. And so that's kind of a unique case where it's a physical being that's performing these types of surgeries, but there's also non-physical beings that perform these types of surgeries as well. And depending on, you know, whatever reason that a person might receive this type of assistance. For me, I was pretty deep into my meditation. I was pretty deep into my ascension path, and I had never heard about remote surgeries either. It was probably a good 8 years into my awakening, maybe 5 years into my deep awakening that I had this happen myself, where I had told you before that I was asked to quit smoking, and I did, and I had flatlined 4 times, and eventually I had light beings assist to remove a large mass of tar that had built up in my lung that was suffocating me. And had they not removed it, I don't think I would have survived that situation. And it just so happened that after I had that experience, um, as the universe likes to give us synchronicities, right? And so right after I had that experience, I happened to find a video online. I was just kind of scrolling through YouTube, and a video came up with Wayne Dyer. You know who that is, right?
Yeah.
And Wayne Dyer came on, and he talked in his video about having remote surgery done on an eye that he had a problem with. So it was a confirmation for me that what I just experienced was real. But of course, over time, I've gotten to become more and more aware of it and more understanding of how it works. And of course, as a healer, this is what we're talking about when we say that we can do remote healing for people, because we're able to, once we have the keys activated in our own beings, we're able then to perform this type of healing on others non-physically.
So two questions for you on that. So one, you said, for the remote beings, or for the call them the astral beings, that they will do this type of surgery if somebody is worthy of it. What does that mean?
Well, I think that if they feel that you're actually being useful and helpful, then they're gonna try to sustain your life for you so that you can continue to do the good works, right? I don't know that they're running around and performing astral surgeries on every single person that's maybe not, I mean, I really can't say. But in my understanding,
if they see that we're, you know, adding and assisting in humanity in the world right now, I think that they're more inclined to kind of step in and do some profound type healing like that. Does that make sense? You're already following the path of ascension and doing good deeds, and then something happens and your life is kind of being threatened. They most certainly can step in and assist.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, oh, go ahead, Ellen.
I was just going to say too that because we're free will souls, you know, like normally that wouldn't be allowed, but they will do it for those that have already surrendered and given themselves to the source to serve humanity, if you will. So you've already given consent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so Ellen, when you experienced your remote healing, did you or remote surgery? Did you see it happening? Did you see the surgery being done on you?
Yeah, it was a really interesting, and it happened more than just once. So it wasn't just like a one-time quote unquote surgery. It was where first they tried to lift my light body out of my body, and this time I wasn't coming out of my body. Normally I kind of can come in and out of my body often, but in this case they were showing me that I was getting hooked and that I had a hook on me. And so um, then they put me back in my body, and over about a 3 month period I could feel them working on me, if you will. And it would be where I could feel them almost cutting open my skin from the back down my back where my spine is, and reaching their hands in and moving stuff around from back there, as well as in front where my lung and my heart chakra are. So it was over a period of a few months that I could feel them going in and healing. I could see star beings circling around me and chanting and sending energy towards me, but I could also feel them going inside of my body and removing tar buildup and things like that out of my lung. And I could feel them in my DNA talking through light language to me and things like that. So it was, you know, pretty much a lot of stuff going on.
Did you recognize any of the beings that were assisting in the surgery?
Well, I mean, I had a familiarity with a couple of them, which would be my two of my angelic guides. And I recognized the divine feminine, if you will. Um, it was a very feminine, angelic being with wings and everything, much like you would call an angel. Um, but yeah, two of them are two of them were my spirit guides. Two of my spirit guides.
Oh, really interesting. So, how does that work? So, say there's someone who may not be awakened or have begun that process yet, but there's someone who's doing a lot of good in the world. Maybe it's a parent who's got a couple kids and they're working 2, 3 jobs. I mean, I'm you know going a little bit on the over dramatic side here, but I'm just to make the just to draw a distinction here. But would how would the decision about whether or not to you know for these astral beings to assist in a type of surgery for them compare to someone who has maybe awakened and is doing good things? Is there a difference, or um like, what are your thoughts on that?
I really just think that it depends on your life's purpose. I really couldn't answer for why they would deem somebody worthy and not somebody else worthy, other than, so I didn't mean to make it sound that way, other than, that they, for whatever reason, there are souls that they have assisted and other souls that they haven't. So I don't know. But I do think that a lot of that has to do with the soul itself connecting to the spirit. And so when once you kind of make the decision to go in that ascension path, you already open yourself up to a lot more magical, mystical kind of experiences, because you're already lining up with it, if you will. It's a law of attraction thing to some degree. because you've already lined up your vibration to match the vibration in the universe of those types of experiences, and you've opened yourself to it. So maybe those, for me, it probably wouldn't have happened had I not just been spending the past many years really trusting and following the spirit and acting on the spirit in all ways. Otherwise, I might not have been receptive to it. So it could just be that they're really here to help all of us, and whether or not we're opening ourselves to it is maybe the factor.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So these are things like it cures cancer, it cures like physical illnesses, not just spiritual energy blockages.
Well, yes, the spirit can heal anything and everything, really. So everything first and foremost is spiritual. And once you're lined up with that, you can absolutely heal any ailment in your being, from, cancer to whatever. You can absolutely heal it. Because everything starts with a thought. And when you get your thoughts lined up with spiritual truth, then you remember that you're an eternal soul. You can reverse aging. You can, so we have a lot of potential. We just don't really tap into it very often, I think, as humans, even though the potential's here for us and we're connected to the divine at all times, so we can tap into that at any time. But I think that the more that we line ourselves up to it, the more we do have the actual experiences, like remote surgery, that are more in the lines of divine.
So does it work like so does it work is that essentially how it works? It's sort of like these um, astral assisters, if you will. They are angels, our angelic guides and spirit guides. Do they work on the spiritual aspect of it, and then that heals the physical, or do they actually go directly in through the into the human body and do that removal of whatever's there?
Well, maybe a little bit of both, really, because in order for it, I'm just going to go off of my experience, so I can speak from direct experience. But in my particular case, first I had to go through the spiritual healing, in the sense that I, you know, um, did my soul work, my soul searching, and psychological understanding and emotional understanding of why I had smoked, to get myself ready to accept that I was going to quit smoking. So that was all spiritual work, right? Because I had to go through all the emotions and thoughts and understandings and things like that, to where, okay, I'm quitting. And then on the physical end of it, so now they see and they know that I've gone through the spiritual work, which they do work with us on that as well. They're the angelic beings, and they're always here to guide us spiritually, emotionally. It's the little whispers in the wind that, as we listen to, we we are in resonance with, and that's assisting to heal us spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. And then the physical part of it, they also did step in and physically perform those type of surgeries through an etheric, through the etheric. So it's both, really. It's all of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let me taking a different twist on this. I know there are probably a lot of people who are listening to this who are Reiki professionals, right? Or Reiki practitioners, Reiki masters. And one of the things that Reiki masters, professionals do, or at least some, I should say, is before we go into a healing, we'll ask for not only our spirit guides and Reiki helpers and anyone else we want to invite in. We ask for our clients, guides to join as well, and anyone who's crossed over who wishes to be here for that. Is it possible? So can people who practice Reiki and do Reiki, and they call these spiritual helpers in? Can Reiki, through Reiki, can you also? Is it just asking these spiritual beings to perform the remote surgery? Is that what it is? Like, how do you initiate that?
Well, there to some degree, Reiki healers can assist in this regard in the sense that when we do Reiki, we're working with the light, right? And so the light is all coming from the source, and therefore all things really come from the source. So when you start working with the light, you're using that source energy to go into a direct area in somebody's being to assist heal them. And yeah, you can assist to some degree there, although I will say that I think there's more to it than just you're wishing that they be healed in that area by using the light to assist you. Because as I understand, after we pass over and we complete our life cycles on Earth, that we go into another dimension for 1,000 years and assist from that perspective to help humanity. So for the souls who have already ascended and that are no longer coming back and reincarnating on Earth, they're also going to spend so much time in another plane, which would be, in the light to assist humans. So that's what I'm understanding that these beings are, as opposed to just you and I doing Reiki, that they're already crossed over and now they're doing so let's say, for example, that it was a surgeon, and it usually is. That was their specialty. That was what they were called to serve in, and they were specializing in surgical procedures and things like that. Now they've ascended. They've gone back to the light. They're done with their life cycles on Earth. They stay in the other dimension to assist humans like myself and like you to help us in our journey as we're trying to ascend. So they're going to be spending so many years and so much time in that plane assisting, if that makes sense. And it would be like that was their work. They were surgeons. They specifically specialized in that thing. So when something like that happens, they're there in the non-physical dimension to assist souls like myself to have these type of procedures from the non-physical perspective.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So so when you so when somebody works with these remote healers, I don't know if I'm referring to that correctly, but do you call them by name, or do you just like ask, if anyone's out there listening? uh, like how does that work?
Well, in my case, when it happened for me, I wasn't really looking for anyone or anything. I was already in a deep trance state for a couple weeks. Sometimes I'll go into long time trance states like that. If all my bills are paid and everything's taken care of, I like to go into a deep states of meditation to where I can kind of get, deep insight on where my life is going and what to do next. And that's what was happening for me. And this was before I knew that I was going to quit smoking. So I was in a very deep trance state for a couple of weeks. And then I had these beings come to me and tell me that I needed to quit smoking. And they showed me some stuff on the left side of my body, darkness. And that led me into a few months of just, really quitting smoking, going through flatlining, um, all kinds of things were going on there. So um, I wasn't exactly asking for that. I was just there kind of in a trance state trying to see where I was being led to. Once they showed me that I needed to quit smoking and I started to go through the flatlining and stuff, I could tell that I had a whole barrage of light being surrounding me for several months. Does that
Fascinating.
Yeah, does that make sense? So I wasn't really asking for them to be there, but once they showed me that that's what I needed to do, they made themselves very readily. I was very aware that they were with me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I have experienced this, but I'll share one thing that happened to me, I had a guest who's also been on the podcast. The only other person who's been on the podcast 5 times, her Ann Jarvis, and Anne connects with a spiritual council called the Seven Rays of the Sun, and she essentially channels them. And so she did a live channeling for me, and then after the recording was over, we were just kind of chatting, and she's like, Adam, the Seven Rays are asking if you'd be okay if they did a healing right now. And I was like, sure, yeah, that sounds great. And I mean, honestly, I'm even though I'm really into like this mystical, really cool spiritual stuff, I'm probably also the biggest what's the word? Like a skeptic, I guess I should say. I have a really big inner skeptic still, in a lot of ways. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. let's see. Go ahead. And I didn't say it like that, but inside I'm thinking, sure, let's see if this actually works. And so she starts scanning my the Seven Rays start scanning my body, and she's going down, and she's like, oh, Adam, like they're saying that they found something in your. And is there something going on with your lower back? And I said, yes, my lower back kills me whenever I go running. Like my back just throbs for days afterwards. It's terrible. And she's like, yeah, I can see it. It's I don't remember exactly how she phrased it. And she goes, okay, well they're healing it. They're healing it now. It's probably going to take a couple weeks for you to notice the difference, but they are working on healing that. And then she went down and did the same thing for one of my knees, which also would get aggravated when I ran and just extremely painful. And, maybe like 2 weeks later, like she said, all the pain went away. And this is pain that I had for years, like years. Yeah. And I haven't had it back since. And it's been probably 7 months, 8 months maybe, but and I run just like I did. Nothing's changed in my life. I haven't, made any significant movement there, but all in the same. I always think about that. I'm like, this is just absolutely fascinating, like just such a fascinating universe.
Well, it's really interesting because the 4 times that I flatlined and I went into the emergency room, I got CAT scans and x-rays and all that, and I was specifically demanding that they give me x-rays because I was given a vision that there was darkness there. And so I have practiced my my connection with the spiritual world for so long that I have zero doubt anymore about the spiritual connection, whereas it's the human world that I have a lot of doubts in. But I still wanted them to give me the x-rays and show me what was there. And they weren't coming back with anything. They didn't have any, they couldn't see anything there. And they billed me just off the first visit. The first visit alone, they billed me $29,000 for a visit that the doctors were completely useless. They didn't see anything there. They didn't help me with anything. And they billed me almost $30,000.
Wow.
And 4 times I went in, 4 different times, and 4 different times they were completely useless to me. The only thing that helped me was the light beings. They were the only, that was the only salvation that I had. And the fact that they, whatever they did when they reached in and they removed all this black stuff, it purged out of my body. And after 3 months, they went in and they kind of cleared it all out, and it all purged out at one time. And after that, I was able to breathe again, and I never had to go back in the hospital and fight with those people about getting some help to breathe. So I just find it to be extraordinary that, the Western medical situation, really, there was no resolve for me. The only way that I got help was through light beings. And had they not done that, who knows, maybe I would have just stopped breathing again. I was flatlining because I was underneath all of that tar and I couldn't breathe. And I would get just too tired of fighting for it, that at the end of the day, I would just stop breathing.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome, and when you go through something like that too, I mean, it's I mean, you can't help but believe and know because you've experienced it firsthand, right? And so once you experience something, it's less like you're hearing it on a podcast and it's interesting, right? But it's you experience it, and so now you know.
I always, one of my favorite quotes is just that there's one thing that separates the wise man from a fool, and that's experience. And so, yeah, until somebody goes through it, it's easy to see why they would be skeptical. But I guess for me, it just happened to me. And because it did, I certainly couldn't deny it. And like I said, four hospital visits, they couldn't find anything. And after this remote surgery, I purged out a mass of black tar, and I have pictures of it. And how could the doctors not see it? You know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's undeniable to me, and yet I can see why it would sound totally, crazy to somebody that hadn't experienced it. But you'll see in pictures sometimes or videos where somebody's about ready to cross the street and get hit by a car, and this big zap of light comes, and somehow or another the child's saved and unharmed, or whatever. um, there's a lot more than our physical human eyes and minds can really see. And it's really just about getting in touch with how you feel. And as you get more in touch with how you feel, you start to connect to the spiritual dimensions more. And there's a lot more there than what we think we see in this little human world.
Yeah, it's the same with sacred medicines too, and the earth gives us so many healing uh, gifts, and you still get people who like swear by traditional medicine, and that's fine. I mean, traditional medicine has its place for sure, but like, but and sacred medicine is by far um, not as abstract as what we're talking about on the show here, right? But even that seems hard to wrap your head around, that you can experience a sacred medicine like ayahuasca or bufo or mushrooms and be healed of something, um, let alone the astral help, by just the spiritual, or I should say just the spirit of the plant or the medicine itself.
Right.
So yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah,
So
it is.
so Ellen, so yeah, so tell us how are you doing during the whole coronavirus thing?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because I was going to kind of bring this back around to the coronavirus as well, in just the sense that, we really can deactivate that fear energy from something like a coronavirus, from our own vibration. And as you're able to use your spiritual senses and your spiritual truth and all that stuff, you can prevent yourself from getting illnesses. And you can, and specifically the coronavirus. So for all the people that are kind of like getting caught up in the fear energy and things like that, not to disregard the fact that there are people that have died, okay? But that you yourself can alter your vibration and rise your vibration high enough that it's not going to be active in your body, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have the power to choose, whether you're going to plug your circuits into something like that or not. For me, I don't have not a single ounce of it. I have no fear of it, no worry. It's not in my vibration. I'm not I'm not I'm not there. But I can also see, some of the underlying um, propaganda, if you will, behind the scenario that we're facing right now with this coronavirus and everything that it's bringing up on a collective level.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. How and you're so how's everything out in Las Vegas? What's the community like there?
Well, I mean, it's like pretty much everywhere. Everything's shut down. Nobody can work. People are getting laid off. Nobody knows. I mean, the housing market's already taking a hit from it. People are backing out of their deals left and right. You know, there's a lot going on right now for us as a race, really, and especially in our country, in the United States, but globally as well. But we're sort of forerunners in a lot of areas in this regard, and I think that this is a really profound situation for us, where it's really surfacing um, a lot of things that were predicted.
Hey, Ellen, you. Okay, Nick, if you're listening, we had some more technical difficulties, but we're back. Um, and however you want to edit this to make it loop correctly or connect correctly, I leave that up to your discretion, my friend. Okay, so we're going to re-record, or not re-record, but start again. So stand by. So Ellen, tell us, how does coronavirus and remote healing, what's the tie in here? What do you like, where do you see the two crossing over each other? Where's the overlap?
Well, that's where, we as individual sovereign souls can create our own reality. And we can do that by choosing whether or not we're going to plug our circuits into this quote unquote pandemic. For me, I don't allow it in my vibration. It's not a part of my reality. I see that the world is experiencing it, but I just don't have any of my circuits plugged into it at all. And so, although I'm observing, what's going on in the world, and I'm aware of that, but I just don't, it's not in my vibration at all. And so I think that that's a really important thing for people to understand, is that, we create our reality, and basically everything starts with a thought. So if you're presented with, a pandemic and everybody's dying everywhere, oh no, oh my gosh, hurry, cover your eyes, and you plug your spirit into it and you say, oh no, okay, yes, we're here, we're having this pandemic and we're all going to die, oh no, and now you've plugged your spirit into it, you're actually agreeing. This is where black magic comes into play. You're actually agreeing to collectively experience that. But if you say to yourself, I'm not, it's not going to happen for me. It's not for me. I don't feel it. I don't see it. It's not my reality. I'm not plugging myself. I don't agree to this. I'm not plugging my spirit into it. Then you can literally alter your reality and not have that experience, if you will. So you get to choose that, even in the midst of chaos. You get to choose whether you're going to, have a chaotic day or not, or a peaceful day. You choose it in all times and in all things. And so part of the coronavirus really is a virus of the mind that's being passed around. It's causing mental illness, mental sickness, fear, trauma, you know, muscle memory from past lives of other pandemics. You know what I'm saying? It's causing people to tap into this aspect of the self on a deep soul level that might have remembrance of movies they saw where all these traumas were happening, or maybe in past lives, or whatever, and now it's causing you to have it in your vibration again if you're unconscious. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So how does that tie into then, um, just being careful and cautious? Does it, um, does that, are you saying that if you tap into that higher frequency vibration, that it sort of excludes you from having to kind of follow these best practices, or are, like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, you absolutely can choose not to have that in your vibration, and therefore your vibration's too high for it to touch you. That's the case for pretty much all things. So when you raise your vibration high enough, nothing can touch you. it doesn't matter because it's not real. And so yeah, there's some truth in that. And I think that for those who are maybe not as experienced at, you know, raising into the 5D consciousness or whatnot, because I know that there's a lot of people who aren't there yet, but that you can certainly choose whether you're going to agree to it or not, and that in and of itself holds ultimate power because you're a free will soul. So if you say I'm not, it's not going to happen to me, and I don't plug myself into it, I'm not allowing myself to live in fear. And even if it happens and I happen to have my croaking experience over this, then I guess I trust that it's a divine thing. But to live your life in fear, even in this very time while we're being faced with this, you know, everything that's going on, you can choose whether you're gonna feel fear over it or not. And the fear itself lowers your vibration. So when you choose that you're not going to have fear, you're already choosing a higher vibration, which assists you in not resonating with the lower vibrational energy, which is where you're more likely to contract illness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally understand your point of view on that. Yep. Um,
Yeah.
so, Ellen, as there applies to remote healing, astral healing, is there anything that we haven't talked about today yet? I'm sure there is. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of cover on this topic?
Well, I guess for the listeners' sake, where that is concerned, and again tying it into what we're facing with coronavirus or any other situation, really, you eh, we all have access to spirit guides and to source intelligence. And so when you're trying to heal something yourself, or any aspect of yourself, or even the coronavirus, whatnot, just a simple prayer and a simple request to have assistance to heal from it is all anybody really needs. So when you're really asking for assistance and asking to be healed, you have that accessible to you. And you can receive assistance from light beings if that's the divine will.
Sure.
uh,
So, oh, go ahead.
oh, no, you go ahead.
No, I was saying so through meditation, through prayer, um, through just continuously connecting, from getting rid of some of the other distractions out there that may be lowering your energetic vibration, you know, keeping as much of the news out of your system, avoiding the negativity on social media. It sounds like a lot to avoid, right? But it's really self-care in a lot of ways. And just keeping yourself open to those, you know, to the other dimensions, in the spirits in the other dimensions, and allowing that to be a healing force.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I wouldn't even recommend people to avoid everything, because I think avoidance can cause illness in and of itself, especially when you're just kind of sticking your head in the dirt and not in the sand and not wanting to see what's going on, because that's really kind of, I guess, what they would call spiritual bypassing. So I wouldn't even recommend hide from it. I would recommend make a conscious choice not to allow it to have power over your soul. You can't avoid the reality of the situation. We're being faced with a lot of things going on right now that are very important to the future of humanity, including the potential for martial law, and including, um, the proposal for these RFID chips and vaccinations that really are very questionable for the well-being of humanity. And so I think that we have a lot of stuff that is being presented to us right now on a collective level, in terms of our future. And if we just passively allow it to happen while we stick our heads in the dirt, we're going to have tremendous problems down the road for ourselves and our children and our grandchildren. And this is part of the darkness's plan for quite a lot of years. And I think that the coronavirus is being used in some regards to present information that would otherwise be absolutely intolerable to humans. So I think it's really important, again, not to allow yourself to get in the fear-based energy, so that when you make decisions about whether or not you really, really, really want to have an RFID chip stuck in your body or whatever, you're doing it from a conscious choice rather than doing it out of fear. And I think that it's important people, look at everything that's going on and don't allow it to control them from a fear-based perspective, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hadn't heard that about the RFID chip yet, as it relates to coronavirus.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of a lot of talk about this getting presented to humanity for a lot of years. There's been movies made about it. There's been a lot of people kind of hinting that this is the direction these guys are trying to go. And because I have a background in investigative journalism, I've done a lot of research for decades. And so there's huge truth behind these stories. And right now, that's being presented by Bill Gates. So they're already trying to propose that, and it's in the news now. So anybody that wants to look it up can just look it up. Go to YouTube or wherever, and you'll see news stations talking about it, news articles where they're literally presenting that people are not going to be able to travel on airplanes unless they prove that they've had the vaccine. And that's a real conflict for spiritual people, because a lot of people that are in tune spiritually don't agree with vaccines. There's a lot of stuff in them that has black magic. For example, body parts from dead babies and body parts from animals. And so, a lot of people on the spiritual path don't agree with injecting that stuff into their being because of our understanding of quantum physics. And so and how that can merge with the spirit and cause spiritual distortions. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now that violates the soul, only it's done passively, so it is so that people aren't, like, it's not obvious that that's what they're doing, but it really is a conflict spiritually. And additionally, there's things like formaldehyde that are put in most of these vaccines, and formaldehyde eventually it causes your organs to shut down. So it might seem like the solution at the moment, but eventually it kills you slowly from behind the scenes. And by the time the collective of all the beings that have taken the vaccination start dying, it will be long past, this crisis. So nobody will be able to tie it to that. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot to be said about these kind of theories for anybody that wants to research and do their homework. But I would recommend, before arguing about it, doing the homework, because it's a the rabbit hole runs deep, if you will.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
Well, Ellen, this has been a very interesting and deep conversation, and thank you so much for taking your time to give to us today and sharing what you know about remote surgery and remote healing and astral healing, those really fascinating topics. And before we let everyone get back to their day, is there anything you'd like to leave our audience with? Is there anything you'd like to promote or plug?
Well, I mean, if anybody wants to get on my YouTube channel, Ellen Redd, REDD, there's lots of videos there also. I know that you've got a series of the podcast that you and I have done, but on my YouTube channel, there's also other videos and things that I put out from time to time. So anybody's welcome to go there if they would like, or they can contact me. I do teach Ascension and traveling dimensions, and also I do teach twin flame union and the alchemical union for twin flames. So if anybody's inclined, they're certainly welcome to reach out to me on Facebook through Ellen Redd, REDD. That's about it.
Excellent. And by the way, if you Google Ellen Red, you'll find her Twitter, her YouTube, her lots of information about Ellen if you can't find her on the social networks themselves. So, and with that being said, Ellen, thank you again for taking your time today. And we really appreciate it. And those listening in, I hope you're doing well. May you find peace. May you find love. May you find yourself as we move through these times, and as we're holed up inside of our homes. May we embrace some of the simplicities in life that maybe we haven't been able to before this time. So, all right, my friends, we will talk soon, and thank you again for listening in to the Spirit Woke podcast.
Thanks for having me back, Adam. Take
Thanks,
care.
Ellen.
Okay.